In the last few weeks, I've been getting a lot, and I mean a lot of requests to meet with clients regarding a specific threat actor and a string of recent data breaches. People have been asking me and the CyberArk Labs team about what sort of threat intelligence that we can provide. So that's what I'm here today to do. My name is Andy Thompson, and I'm the Senior Offensive Security Research Evangelist for CyberArk Labs. I represent the team of researchers here, and it's my job to share with you our cutting-edge research and provide some best practices to better protect your organization. So let's get started with our session today and dive into what we know about this particular threat actor. Now, this threat actor goes by many different names depending on who's doing the threat research. Mandiant refers to them as UNC 3944, but some other names include Scattered Swine, Octotempest, Octopus, get it? Because they like to hack Okta. But most people know them by the name of Scattered Spider. This group has been active since around May of 2022, and based on the evidence collected, it's believed that they are young, English-speaking kids from the US and UK. This is evident from the recent arrests of Scattered Spider members, which we'll get into in a little bit. Now, this is a financially motivated threat group, primarily applying extortion tactics to squeeze as much money as possible from their victims. Now, initially, UNC 3944 focused on credential stealing and SIM swapping attacks to steal cryptocurrency. They'd typically steal the cryptocurrency wallet credentials through either social engineering or spear phishing, and then SIM swap the victim's phone to intercept the MFA challenge, and then immediately drain the wallet as quickly as possible. Now, as time has progressed, this group has evolved and refined their strategies, eventually shifting away from cryptocurrency theft and shifting more towards ransomware attacks and data theft extortion. It was most likely during this phase that their activities came to your attention, primarily due to the high-profile cyber attacks on major corporations such as Twilio, Caesars, and MGM Resorts. This group gained significant notoriety as the most prominent affiliate of the ransomware as a service group known as Alpha Blackcat. This group was renowned for their exceptionally swift ransomware that could bypass EDR systems, made possible through technology known as intermittent encryption. Now, if you want to know more about intermittent encryption, some of the folks at CyberArk Labs did some really fantastic work on how intermittent encryption works, and also we released a tool called White Phoenix that will help organizations recover from this style of encryption attack. Now, here is a quick example of a Scattered Spider ransomware attack. We did a deep dive a few months back on the MGM hack, and still to this day, I think this is a perfect example of the modus operandi of this particular threat actor and how they continue to operate. Now, in this breach, a highly privileged users were compromised. They were then able to socially engineer and convince the help desk to either bypass, disable, or reset the user's MFA, which then granted them access to the back end of MGM Resorts' Okta tenant. Now, from here, they bolted on their own IDP for privilege escalation and persistence, and then self-assigned a compromised account to every application in the Okta instance, really expanding the intrusion scope. And then they pivoted from the IAM infrastructure into their Azure cloud, into their data center, in which they stole over 9 terabytes of sensitive information, and then they were able to pivot ultimately into the ESXi virtualization infrastructure upon which they were detected. And then they kicked off the Alpha Blackcat ransomware, which completely crippled the operations of MGM Resorts for weeks, literally costing them hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, there's a lot more to this attack, so if you'd like to learn all the details, please check out our previous work on this major data breach. Now, although this isn't directly related to Scattered Spider, I am going to go off on a bit of a tangent here about Alpha Blackcat because, well, one, it's super fascinating, and two, it really explains the next evolution of tactics of Scattered Spider. Okay, so in December of 2023, the FBI seized the Alpha Blackcat domain, and then they released a file decryptor that allowed many victims, but not all, many victims to recover their files. But in February, March of 2024, later that year, Alpha Blackcat somehow recovered that same domain and went right back to business as usual, right before they pulled what's called an exit scam. Simply put, they screwed over all their customers. After one of their affiliates breached Change Healthcare for millions of dollars, the victims paid the ransom, but Alpha Blackcat decided not to pay their affiliate. They simply took the money, closed up shop, and left town. At this point, Alpha Blackcat is no more. It really remains uncertain if they have any plans to regroup or rebrand under a new identity or just head off to the Seychelles and retire. At this point, nobody's doing business with Alpha Blackcat. But now, Scattered Spider has been observed employing two different ransomware as a service groups, Ransom Hub and Qilin. So, that begs the question, who is Ransom Hub and Qilin? So Ransom Hub is actually a rebrand of the Knight or Cyclops 2.0 ransomware. So back in February of 2024, the original ransomware as a service operation behind Knight ceased and the source code was sold off. The operators then changed their payloads, regrouped, and this ultimately led to the creation of Ransom Hub. This ransomware strain is particularly dangerous because it targets multiple platforms including Windows, Linux, Mac OS, ESXi, and even Android devices. Both Knight and Ransom Hub are coded in Go and use a sophisticated obfuscation technique to evade detection. Additionally, Ransom Hub includes a sleep operation to delay execution, which really complicates the response efforts. And now for some ransomware drama. Shortly after the Ransom Hub launch, they were leaking the medical data from Change Healthcare, the same Change Healthcare that Alpha Blackcat had compromised a few months earlier, which resulted in the exit scam. So I know what you may be thinking. Ransom Hub is the rebrand of Alpha Blackcat. Well, maybe not. Many people believe that Alpha Blackcat is not rebranded by Ransom Hub, but that previous members of Alpha Blackcat had left and then joined up with Ransom Hub instead. That's the more likely, the realistic thing that happened here. Now, let's switch things up and talk about the other ransomware variant that Scattered Spider has been observed using. Let's move to Qilin. All right. Now, for those of you that aren't up to speed on your Chinese mythology, a Qilin is a mythical hooved and horned beast meant to represent good luck, which is really quite ironic if you think about it. Now, although the Chinese name attribution is pointing us to believe that this is actually a Russian ransomware as a service group. They've been around since at least August of 2022. And Qilin, also known as Agenda, is also a cross-platform ransomware and supports many different types of encryption modes and is really quite flexible and adept at avoiding detection. Now, what's really interesting here is their affiliate payout model. It's very concerning. Affiliates can earn up to 80% of the ransom payments of ransoms $3 million and less. but they can receive 85% for payments above that figure. Now, considering that Scattered Spider is known for hitting incredibly large organizations with incredibly large ransom amounts, it really makes sense that they would want to do business with Qilin. Now, another concerning fact here is that Qilin's not beating around the bush when it comes to calling their shots. A few weeks ago, Qilin posted on their dark website that they were in possession of a zero-day vulnerability and were specifically targeting U.S. medical institutions. Now, although it is yet to be seen if they actually are in possession of that zero-day, we still advise everyone to stay alert and vigilant. So that's a little backstory around the ransomware as a service providers that Scattered Spider has taken up shop with, which leads us to the main part of today's presentation. Today, I'd like to discuss with you some of the more recent events concerning this particular threat actor. Now, over the last few months, there has been a global law enforcement effort to bring these criminals to justice. Several members of Scattered Spider have actually recently been apprehended and are facing trial for their crimes. The first of these arrests happened earlier this year on January 9th when U.S. federal authorities arrested a 19-year-old from Palm Coast, Florida by the name of Noah Michael Urban, aka Sosa, aka King Bob. Now, authorities charged him with wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and conspiring with others to use SIM swapping to steal cryptocurrency. Prosecutors actually said that Urban stole at least $800,000 from at least 5 victims between August of 2022 and March of 2023. Now, another arrest happened in May of 2024 where a 22-year-old British national by the name of Tyler Buchanan was apprehended. Now, Tyler, aka Tyler B, was apprehended in Palma de Mallorca, Spain, while he was traveling to Naples, Italy. Authorities say that Tyler often bragged online in dark web forums about SIM swapping and at one point was in possession of over $27 million in Bitcoin. Oh, and this one just came in the wire, over the wire a couple weeks ago. On July 18th, a 17-year-old boy from Walsall, England was also arrested due to his connection with Scattered Spider. Now, as we speak, a very thorough forensic analysis is being done to determine who else is involved in this criminal organization. Authorities, they're making it known. If you are involved with Scattered Spider, they will hunt you down. It's just a matter of time. As it stands, Scattered Spider is not going anywhere. Despite all these arrests, it's really unknown how many members actually exist within this organization. Additionally, this group will continue to operate with no delay because they're really only loosely affiliated with each other, often working in smaller cells to conduct their individual attacks. Simply put, a single arrest won't bring this group down, but it's still great to see. All right. Now I'm going to continue and we're going to discuss some of the newly adopted TTPs, otherwise known as tools, tactics, and procedures that this threat actor has recently been using. First off, a new persistence tactic employed by Scattered Spider has been the creation of virtual machines instead of establishing access on an existing endpoint. This is part of a broader strategy that involves maintaining persistent administrative access to the hypervisor. On multiple occasions, Scattered Spider has been observed accessing vSphere and Azure after compromising single sign-on applications. And once inside, they proceed to create new virtual machines from which they then conduct all their subsequent activities. This approach allows them to maintain a persistent presence within the compromised environment, even if individual systems are cleaned or reset. And this method of persistence is particularly concerning because it can be really difficult to detect and remove. Since the threat actors are operating from within their own virtual machine, Traditional endpoint detection and response solutions really aren't able to effectively identify or mitigate this type of threat. Now, by leveraging the inherent capabilities of virtualization platforms, they can effectively maintain a foothold in compromised environments, making their activities harder to detect and their intrusions more difficult to resolve. Now, an interesting story I was recently told by an incident responder who preferred to remain anonymous was that after a very lengthy search, they were able to discover a hidden VM within a compromised victim's network. This VM was not only being used as the foothold for Scattered Spider, but it was also being used to mine cryptocurrency using the victim's compute resources. It turned out that this VM was huge. This one single VM cost the organization as much as the entire cloud compute budget for an entire month. Now, cryptojacking is a fairly noisy behavior, and organizations can monitor for this type of behavior. Organizations should monitor resource usage to make sure that it's not being abused. Keep an eye on CPU, memory, and network usage for unusual spikes in resource consumption, as this very well could be a sign of cryptojacking. Additionally, organizations should monitor their network traffic for unusual patterns as well, because cryptojacking often involves communication with external servers to facilitate the data exchange in cryptocurrency mining. And let's face it, detecting a noisy cryptojacking operation is one thing, but detecting an obfuscated virtual machine hidden amongst thousands of other machines is a much more difficult task to remediate. There are several things that I would offer up here. Like I stated earlier, you'd want to review for your hypervisor logs for any anomalies that indicate the abuse of compute resources. You'd also want to analyze those hypervisor logs for entries that might indicate the presence of VMs that aren't listed in the management console. Lastly, you can check the metadata files or cloud init files, as they may reveal the presence of hidden VMs. For example, if you were working within Google Cloud, you can use the command curl metadata.google.internal-I to query the metadata service. Another tactic recently observed of the Scattered Spider group has been the abuse of legitimate software to steal data from SaaS applications and then transfer it to cloud storage accounts that are under their control. There are a lot of different tools that can be used depending on the target platform. These tools are all automatic, low cost, easy to use, easy to bring into an organization, and they really only require a resource path and proper credentials. And detecting such exfiltration techniques in real time is incredibly challenging, since historical SaaS logs just aren't really sufficient for this purpose. There are many different types of off-the-shelf cloud synchronization tools like Airbyte, Fivetran, and Rclone, all of which have been observed numerous times in Scattered Spider attacks. Here is an example of this type of attack using Rclone. All right, Rclone is a very powerful command line tool that can synchronize tons of different cloud services. We're going to name our demo here demo, and you can look at, there's like over 50 different cloud services that can be used to synchronize. And we're going to go with option 17, Google Drive. So we're going to now create our authentication token. It's going to move us over to a web browser where we can log on with our exfiltration username and password. It'll create a Google Drive, and then it will dump us back to the command line. So from here, we'll specify the folder that we're going to exfiltrate. So we're going to specify the documents folder of this particular user. So C users AAAA/documents. Okay, we're going to specify our Google Drive. We called it demo in this one, and we're going to put it in our documents folder on our Google Drive. So now it is synchronizing, and once it's completed, we'll jump back over to our threat actor's Google Drive, and there it is in the documents folder, all the exfiltrated documents. Another tool that Scattered Spider has been observed using is called PC Unlocker. This off-the-shelf legitimate program enables a user to boot VMs into a special mode that allows the password reset of any account, including local administrator accounts. This effectively bypasses all the normal domain level controls that prevent access to those accounts. Now, once the password is reset, it does require a reboot, which is a really good detection opportunity. And here is a demo of PC Unlocker. All right, to start off, we're going to log on with a username and password. Okay, we're all good. Now I'm going to reboot the machine and boot from the attached ISO file, like a DVD-ROM. So once we have pressed any key, we're booted into PC Unlocker, where it reads the registry and lists all the local accounts on the machine. We're going after the first one here and going to reset the password. But instead of a password, we're not going to put any password. So no password at all for this user. I'm going to then reboot the machine, and it will boot right back into Windows here. And take a look. There's no option to log on. You just click to sign in, and boom, no password. You're straight in without any username or password. It's also been recently observed that Scattered Spider has begun using open source tools and scripts to bypass secure endpoint configurations. Scattered Spider honestly couldn't care less about your CIS or SOC 2 benchmarks. Their goal is to break these standards, and scripts like MAS, AIO, and Privacy Script really make removing those configurations quite easy. Now, MAS AIO, which is short for Microsoft Activation Scripts All-in-One, is a set of scripts designed to simplify the activation of Microsoft products, including Office and Windows. Now, the consequences of abusing such a script could lead to several things, including illegal software activation, circumventing of enterprise licensing, the distribution of pirated software, and malware distribution. Now, another script that Scattered Spider has been observed using is called Privacy Script. Now, this is essentially meant to harden the system, removing a bunch of pre-installed bloatware and services that could potentially compromise a user's security. But it also removes a ton of security controls that then expose the endpoint to abuse, like the removal of Windows Defender. Now, measures like Microsoft Defender are a critical part of a defense in-depth strategy, but when deactivated, pose an incredibly significant risk to an organization. Here's a demo of PrivacyScript.bat. All right, let's start off by looking at our virus and threat protection settings. You can see here that virus and threat protection is enabled. Windows Defender is present. I'm now going to run privacy-script.bat, and you'll see it's doing a ton of things. It is scrubbing all the built-in bloatware like Cortana and OneDrive and all this other stuff, Xbox services that you don't need. But it's also disabling Windows Defender too. Take a look. Nothing. No virus and threat protection are installed on this machine after running Privacy Script. Now, while these APIs are designed to enhance usability and efficiency, they can also be weaponized and used for malicious purposes. Now, Scattered Spider has been known to exploit multiple different applications APIs, essentially turning a tool intended for productivity into a weapon. Therefore, it's crucial for us to implement robust security measures and continuously monitor API activity to mitigate this risk. Now, Scattered Spider has recently adopted this tactic of using such tools against products like AWS, Azure, Salesforce, Workday, and CyberArk. Yes. In CyberArk's case, a legitimate PowerShell module named PSPAS is being abused. Now, PSPAS is an open source tool on GitHub that's designed to programmatically interact with the CyberArk API using PowerShell. The author, PS Pete, and I were actually friends on Discord. Hi, Pete. And even some of my personal friends are contributors to this open source project. And you really should check it out. It's a really awesome tool. It's got over 280 stars on GitHub. It's an incredibly powerful tool for Vault administrators. But unfortunately, Scattered Spider has also been observed abusing PSPAS. Now, in particular, they were abusing two different functions, the get-pas account password and get-pas account SSH key. These functions allow for credential and key retrieval for both the V1 and V2 versions of the PVWA. Because it uses PowerShell, not all organizations implement very good PowerShell logging mechanisms. Thus, the detection of this could be difficult, right? But hope is not lost, folks. When these events are properly logged, this really can serve as a fantastic detection opportunity. I did reach out to PS Pete, the main contributor and the project owner of PSPAS, and he agreed to show us a short demo of this capability. You can see here how easy it is to pull a credential or an SSH key with the simple command. Now, luckily for you though, these actions are creating events in the logs that can be detected and blocked. So, what you want to do is make sure that PowerShell logging is enabled and that you're looking for the source of events. Last and certainly not least, this tactic has been around for quite some time, but has only recently found its way into the Scattered Spider playbook. Instead of trying to trick their victims into giving away their credentials, they're just demanding it. It's scary, and it's true. The InfoSec world has a term for this, and it's been around for a while. Again, it's called the rubber hose attack. You basically beat or threaten to beat your victim repeatedly until they give you the password. This XKCD comic here makes a bit of fun at the topic, but in reality, folks, this is no laughing matter. I'm afraid to say this. It works. This tactic works. People in the cybersecurity world are all too familiar with this. Many researchers, threat hunters, and incident responders choose not to have a social media presence for this very reason. Incident responders often try to keep a low profile and not let the threat actors know who's actually behind the keyboard because of this reason. By coercing their victims and threatening physical harm on them or their loved ones, they really have been quite successful recently in acquiring credentials. And honestly, when the lives of your loved ones are at stake, handing over a password really seems like an easy choice. I'm sad to say it, but I really do expect an uptick of this type of attack to occur and other threat actors to pick up on this tactic as well. Okay, folks, it looks like I'm almost out of time. Let's take a moment to reflect on this incredibly dangerous threat actor that is Scattered Spider. This threat group has repeatedly demonstrated an ability to adapt, innovate, and evolve, consistently staying one step ahead in this ever-changing landscape of cyber threats. From their use of virtual machines for persistence, to their leveraging of legitimate cloud synchronization tools, and their exploitation of API functionalities, Scattered Spider has proven to be a master of innovation. It's not that these tactics are particularly new or sophisticated. They're just adapting their playbooks to what works, and it works over and over again. But as they continue to use these new tactics and strategies, we must too rise to the challenge. It's our job to adapt and evolve our defenses as well. So Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me today. This is Andy Thompson, Senior Offensive Security Research Evangelist with CyberArk Labs, signing off.